GOP members that now sit on the House Foreign Affairs Committee began their hearing to examine the Biden administration's handling of the evacuation of Afghanistan. And let's be real, it was a disaster, a colossal screw-up, an absolute deadly debacle. Now, I think you all know out there that this exit will most likely go down as one of the biggest stains on America in history. But now, today, thanks to these hearings, we're learning more about what actually happened that day and whether or not the attack could have been prevented. And we learned that today thanks to the testimony of some of the Marines that were actually there that day and injured, like Marine Corps Sergeant Tyler Vargas Andrews.
Then a flash and a massive wave of pressure. I'm thrown 12 feet onto the ground, but instantly knew what had happened. I opened my eyes to Marines dead or unconscious lying around me. My body was overwhelmed from the trauma of the blast. My abdomen had been ripped open. Every inch of my exposed body, except for my face, took ball bearings and shrapnel. Our military members and veterans deserve our best because that is what we give to America. The withdrawal was a catastrophe in my opinion, and there was an inexcusable lack of accountability and negligence. The 11 Marines, 1 sailor, and 1 soldier that were murdered that day have not been answered for.
No, they have not. Joining me now, I got to try and keep it together, to help me break down today's hearings and to discuss further the January 6 videos, Florida Congressman Greg Steube, also a veteran. Greg, let's begin with the hearings. I know everybody's talking about the videos, and that's all the hoopla in D.C. and in the corporate media world and in probably most households today. But I'd like to make the hearings the number one thing we're talking about today, and we'll get to January 6th because it was also a travesty as well. I listened to this man's entire testimony, and let me tell you, I am more mad today than I was back in August when this whole thing went down. You feel the same?
Yeah, first I want to thank that brave Marine for having the courage to stand before the American people and what is likely a bunch of Democrats who are going to ask him really stupid and inflammatory questions, and being willing to do that for his nation, for the brothers and sisters that we lost on that day. And let me just remind your viewers that none of this would be happening, the January 6th footage, these hearings on Afghanistan, if Republicans wouldn't have taken the majority.
That's right.
This happened years ago. Mm-hmm. Years ago was the failed Afghanistan withdrawal, yet Congress did nothing because Nancy Pelosi was in charge. So thankfully now the Republicans are in charge and can call to the carpet the decisions that were made by this administration of disaster that happened in Afghanistan, the truth behind January 6th, but none of that would have happened if Democrats were still in control today.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, we're talking about a year and a half later with Afghanistan, the COVID pandemic for 3 years, all these hearings that have begun in the last couple days. Again, thank you to the American public who put Republicans back in charge of the House. Now we got to do the same thing in 2 years in the White House and the Senate so we can get more answers. Anyway, I want to play another clip from this brave Marine, because then I want to discuss with you exactly what went down that day, because from what I heard, it sounds like this was a complete failure of command. They could have taken this sniper out that morning before the bomb even went off. Watch this.
I requested for the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Brad Whited, to come to the tower to see what we did. While we waited for him, psychological operations individuals came to our tower immediately and confirmed the suspect met the suicide bomber description. He eventually arrived and we showed him our evidence, the photos we had of the 2 men. We reassured him of the ease of fire on the suicide bomber. Pointedly, we asked him for engagement authority and permission. We asked him if we could shoot. Our battalion commander said, and I quote, "I don't know," end quote. Myself and my team leader asked very harshly, "Well, who does? Because this is your responsibility, sir." He again replied he did not know, but would find out. We received no update and never got our answer. Eventually, the individual disappeared. To this day, we believe he was a suicide bomber.
I mean, come on. That's our best assets. The guys on the ground that are seeing that piece of human scum that was going to kill 13 and maim hundreds and take him out, and no one in our chain of command in that debacle of an exit where Biden wasn't listening to his generals, He's not taken out and death happens. I mean, your thoughts?
Well, and let's even back up before that. So this individual who detonated the suicide vest was released from Bagram Air Base in prison that we had him in because Biden and the higher-ups at the Department of Defense decided to leave that location against any military officer's recommendation because it was a better facility to do the evacuation from. But they left everything there, and everybody that was in that prison at Bagram were released. That was the guy that detonated this vest. And then now you hear the testimony of a sniper who was seeing exactly what he was seeing, had the ability to take him out, and leaders within his chain of command refused to give him the authorization to go. When I was in Iraq, the rules of engagement was if you needed to defend yourself and others, you had the right to do that. But I'm sure this soldier, this Marine, didn't want to do something and then later be court-martialed for it without the appropriate approval process. It's a sad day in America. All of this is because of Biden and his administration, his DOD, Mark Milley, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. All those people should be held accountable for the lack of decisions and the lack of leadership and the death that occurred of American service members in Afghanistan on that day.
Yeah, 13, not to mention how many were maimed, like that young brave Marine lost an arm, a leg. He said he has over 100 and some ball bearings that riddled his body. And think about the guilt. These Marines that saw the damn sniper and wanted to take him out, and nobody had the guts in command to give it because they were worried about the administration, I'm sure in SecDef, so they didn't give the command. Now these young Marines have to live with that and say, we could have prevented this. But I'm sure he
lives with that every single day, knowing that he could have taken that guy out.
Yeah. Let's move to the videos real quick before I say something that'll get me in big trouble. We've learned a lot in 2 days. I can't wait for the rest of the videos, and I can't wait until the entire nation can see these. And from what I hear, the speaker's working on getting them to pretty much all media outlets and the general public eventually. But this was the initial kind of push to get Tucker to get out there. You heard me at the beginning. 5 or 6 huge revelations and 5 or 6 lies debunked now. Thank you to Tucker's team for looking through the hours and hours of video. Your thoughts on what we've learned just in the last 48 hours?
Yeah, first of all, again, none of this would be happening but for the Republicans taking the majority in the House. Speaker Pelosi sat on all these videos for 2 years and refused to give it to the American public. So I want to thank Speaker McCarthy for giving that information and giving those videos to the American public to see. This is the first step in what should be an investigation in the House Administration Committee on what really happened on that day and vindicate those individuals who have been falsely accused, falsely tried, falsely convicted without this information, all the different information that's occurred. So I'm thankful for Kevin McCarthy to give this information to the American people to see exactly what happened on that day, and what better way to do that than the actual video footage from that day. And it's very telling that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are going on the Senate floor and calling for Fox News to not air this information.
I know. And I'm going to throw them under the bus because that's my job, Greg. There were also some really weak-kneed Republican senator comments yesterday on the floor as well, and to the press in the hallways about this video. Maybe they didn't make it as public, but there's some Republicans that need to go too. Because why wouldn't people want the video to be shown to the entire nation so that everybody can see the truth of January 6th? And whether that caters to a narrative of left, right, indifferent, I don't care. I just want it all out there so we can see the truth for ourselves, and we can decide, not you, the government, but we, the people. Greg, as always, we appreciate you. I know you're still on the mend. Get better, pal. You heading back to the office pretty soon, right?
Getting stronger every day. I'll be up in D.C. March 22nd.
All right. You take care, sir.
Back in the fight. Thank you.
Yep.